World turning round and round, see this in every town. Never here, I just roam. Questions leave me alone. Suspicion in their eyes, is it wrong to live in disguise? Misdemeanor or a crime? I just wonder all the time. You don't need my ID, just let me be, let me be. Dirty bacon on my trail, in this world I won't fail. Catch me if you can, always moving, I'm the man. Rooms with no names, just beds, floating thoughts in my head. On a train or in the sky, I'm the one who loves to fly. No chains to hold me down, freedom's what I found. You don't need my ID, just let me be, let me be. Dirty bacon on my trail, in this world I won't fail. Catch me if you can, always moving, I'm the man. Rooms with no names, just beds, floating thoughts in my head. On a train or in the sky, I'm the one who loves to fly. No chains to hold me down, freedom's what I found. You don't need my ID, just let me be, let me be. Dirty bacon on my trail, in this world I won't fail.
Will come to order. I want to welcome everyone here today. Without objection, the chair may declare a recess at any time. I now recognize myself for the purpose of delivering an opening statement. This morning, we'll explore how we can make the federal government work better for all Americans. President Trump promised he would eliminate Washington waste and reform the unchecked federal bureaucracy, and he is delivering on his promise made to the American people. President Trump created the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, to conduct a government-wide audit to root out waste, fraud, and abuse and ensure we protect taxpayer dollars. At the helm of President Trump's effort is Elon Musk, one of the most successful entrepreneurs ever. For decades and on a bipartisan basis, members of this committee have lamented the inefficiency of the federal bureaucracy. We fought never-ending battles against the waste, fraud, and abuse the bureaucracy generates during both Republican and Democrat administrations. One byproduct of this inefficiency, according to GAO, is the near $250 billion in annual improper payments the government issues. But now that President Trump is taking action to drain the swamp and expose how the federal government is spending taxpayer money, which he was elected to do, Democrats are hyperventilating and sensationalizing it. Over the past few days, we've heard wild claims from Democrats that we are, quote, at the beginning of a dictatorship, end quote, and we are in a constitutional crisis. This kind of theatrical rhetoric is exactly what the American people rejected in November. Americans know that Washington needs reform, and DOGE is taking inventory to bring about change and steward taxpayer dollars entrusted to the federal government. Real innovation is not clean and tidy. It's necessarily disruptive and messy. But that's exactly what Washington needs right now. And it's what the American people voted for in November, a departure from the broken status quo. This committee intends to work in partnership with DOGE. We want to reinforce its efforts and not blunt the momentum it's generating for needed change to the federal bureaucracy. At the Oversight Committee, our core mission remains unchanged: identifying waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government, and proposing solutions to make it more efficient and effective for the American people. For this Congress, we created a subcommittee chaired by Marjorie Taylor Greene that is dedicated to working with DOGE. But I expect all of our subcommittees will participating in this effort to make Washington more accountable. I'm hopeful that we can find some common ground with our Democrat colleagues to ensure the federal government more efficiently and effectively serves the American people. I ask all my colleagues here today, who among us believes that the federal government operates at peak efficiency? The federal government has expanded dramatically since the early years of our republic. There are today more than 400 executive branch agencies and sub-agencies, and roughly 1,000 federal commissions. Most of these entities are relatively new creations. They did not exist for most of our nation's history. Not only has the government grown in size and complexity, but it has also taken on many functions once handled by the states or even the private sector. How did we get here? Tom Schatz, the president of the Citizens Against Government Waste, and one of our witnesses today, notes that Congress tends to respond to each new problem that arises by creating a new program or agency. And even if the problem goes away, the program or agency remains. Congressional authorizing committees tend to generate these new programs and entities.
Donald Trump delivered one of the most impressive historic landslide victories we've ever seen. And it's because he offers solutions to the American people, and that's exactly what we House Republicans are doing. I want to spend my time today engaging with Mr. Schatz talking about a solution that I campaigned on and that really resonated with the constituents across my district. And I'll predicate by noting I'm probably one of the few members on this committee who actually was a federal employee. From 2017 to 2021, I served in the Executive Office of the President as the President's White House Political Director. And one of the things that I was tasked with while working for the President was helping move departments and agencies outside of Washington, D.C., so that they could be headquartered in areas that are more reflective of the people they're targeting to, or designed to serve. And Mr. Schatz, in your testimony, I very much appreciated you noting that 17 of the 24 agencies only use an average of 25% of agency headquarters office space. The American taxpayer is paying for office space that is not being used. And it's one of the things that I'm very passionate about. In 2019, we relocated large agencies within the Department of the Interior to Colorado, and we found a lot of success in doing so. So I just would love to get your thoughts and comments on that. I think that's an innovative solution that this Congress can move forward, and something President Trump campaigned on, and I'm so proud the American people gave him the victory and affirmation for that.
Well, thank you, Congressman, and we completely agree with that concept, because it would enable the federal government to work more closely with state agencies that in many cases perform a lot of the same functions. And that's another form of duplication. That isn't necessarily turning those functions over to the states, but it is determining where it might be more effective and more efficient and deliver those services. And just briefly, the objective of an agency should be to deliver a service to someone, period, right? And then determine how that gets done, and then determine how much it costs. And the reverse is true. It's spend the money. If that doesn't work, spend more money. Don't take the time to figure out what works. This would be very helpful to reaching that conclusion.
Well, in that vein, and as my esteemed colleague to my left, Mr. Gill, noted, all the programs that were all the money previously spent by USAID, I have to imagine the people of Texas's 26th congressional district or Georgia's 3rd congressional district would not have made those decisions had they been employees at that agency headquarters. And in that vein, I just want to also note for the record, you'd have to drive an hour from where we sit right now to reach a precinct that voted for President Trump. Yet, of course, we saw a landslide victory across our country. To me, you need a federal workforce that's reflective of the balance that America is. And in this general area, we've got 90–95% Democrat participation in elections. To me, that's from where our federal workforce is coming. That's why we have so many problems that we've discussed here today. I also want to note, Mr. Schatz, your leadership at Citizens Against Government Waste has led to trillions of dollars of savings for Americans. You've done an incredible service to your country. And I just want to close with a final question to you. Based on your wealth and knowledge and experience, what are the most prominent patterns or locations that you find waste, fraud, and abuse in our federal government? Any advice to the committee before I finish?
Well, it runs across all agencies. And I would note on the Department of Defense, when the Grace Commission made its recommendations and found $424.4 billion in savings, 25% of that was in the Department of Defense. As has been noted, they failed an audit. Joint Strike Fighter is pretty much of a mess. Less than half, about 55% of them are available for use. So the procurement system needs a lot of reform. Information technology, 80% of the systems are legacy systems, and some of them, they're so old you can't find people to fix them or service them. And that's an investment, in our view, that's worth making. Upgrade those systems, and then people will be able to find out from the click of a button, what's going on with their money, and that would be extremely helpful for transparency, accountability, and more efficiency.
Well, I'm grateful for your testimony today. I hope every committee member reads all the innovative solutions that you've offered us, and likewise, I hope my colleagues join me in helping relocate our departments and agencies outside of Washington, D.C. I yield back to our distinguished chairman, Mr. Comer.
The gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes Mr. Min from California.
Mr. Schatz, Dr. Resch, thank you for testifying today. Now, this hearing is happening because of Republican concerns about the size of our government. But I would submit they're missing basic economics here, and particularly the chapter on public goods. As a reminder, public goods are things that governments provide that we all benefit from. National defense, infrastructure, education, police, firefighting, air traffic control, all examples of public goods. And the most important thing to recognize is that these are all things that private markets typically do not provide on their own. So when we're talking about making cuts to the FAA budget for air traffic controllers, understand that no one is going to fill that gap to make our skies safer. When we cut the budget for FDA and USDA inspections, no one's going to step up to come and ensure that our foods and drugs are safe. That is why the government provides these things. Now, I realize it makes for a great talking point to talk about getting rid of waste in government. And I'm sure there are many examples we can point to. I know my colleagues have pointed to some if we look closely enough, just as I'm sure we can find lots of examples of waste and corruption in large private companies as well. But here's the thing. The reality is that what you're looking for is just not possible at the scale you're talking about. Elon Musk and many of my colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle have publicly stated that their intention is to cut $2 trillion from the federal budget. The problem is that this is just bad math. And yes, I'm Asian, and yes, I'm pretty good at math, but you don't have to be very good at math to understand this. The chart behind me illustrates very clearly the entire domestic discretionary budget that's the primary focus of today's hearing is only $917 billion. You can cut everything: education, food safety, air traffic safety, wildfire prevention, affordable housing, the FBI, the DOJ, and you're still not even halfway to the amount that Elon Musk and the Repubs are trying to cut. You can fire every single person in the federal government. That's 4% of the federal budget, a tiny fraction of what you're looking to cut right now. You can cut all military spending, $805 billion. You're still not there. So let's be realistic and talk about what's really at stake here. When we're talking about $2 trillion, we're talking about non-discretionary spending, which is a fancy way of saying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. These are earned benefits, the checks that my mom and dad rely on for their retirement, that your moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas rely on, that they spent their lifetimes paying into. And let's be clear, this is what Elon Musk and many of my Repub colleagues are targeting right now. They've made it very clear with their statements, such as when Nancy Mace in March 2023 called for huge cuts to Social Security, saying everything is on the table, quote. And so that brings me to my first question. Dr. Resch, I assume you're familiar with the United States Constitution.
Yes, sir.
Article 1, Section 1 states all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and House of Representatives. Article 1, Section 9 gives exclusive authority for appropriations to Congress. Are you aware of any provisions in the Constitution that allow the President of the United States to unilaterally take away Congress's legislative and appropriations authority?
I am not.
Are you aware of any provisions in the Constitution that allow a special governmental employee appointed by the President to take away Congress's powers?
I am not.
Are you aware of any references in the Constitution to efficiency?
I am not.
That's right, because they do not exist. Because efficiency, while important, is not something that the founders thought was a constitutional priority. Founders were very aware that democracy was a messy and inefficient way of running a government. It would be far more efficient to have a monarch or dictator decide how to fund programs rather than have 435 members of the House and 100 senators debate and deliberate and vote about it. But this country was not founded as a monarchy, not founded as a dictatorship, because we expressly decided that democratic representation, as inefficient as it might be, was more important than pure efficiency. And that's the point that my Repub colleagues need to recognize. We can debate our views on Social Security and Medicare and government spending. In fact, it's critically important that we do that. But those debates belong here in Congress. And we should not lose sight of the fact that Elon Musk, an unelected billionaire, is playing God with the federal government, deciding at a whim which programs and agencies he wants to, quote, delete at the flip of a switch. Elmo has gained control over our federal payment systems. He's universally declared that certain agencies we've created here in Congress are terminated. He's locked federal employees out of their systems, and he's threatening to end federal disbursements that he does not like. This is all illegal and grossly unconstitutional. The United States of America is not a monarchy, it is not a dictatorship, and Elon Musk is breaking the law repeatedly by taking Congress's legislative authority. So to my Repub colleagues, I want to plead with you, this is not a partisan issue. It is your authority here in Congress that is being stolen by Elon Musk right now. If you do not speak up, you are going to permanently lose your legislative authority. We all swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, and that is what I'm asking you all to do. We have an obligation to uphold the rule of law and defend the Constitution against this unprecedented assault. I yield to the ranking member.
I have 3 seconds to thank you. I thank the gentleman for his observations and for his cogent points.
I also would like to request unanimous consent to enter into the record a New York Times article titled U.S. Agencies Fund and Fight with Elon Musk. A Trump presidency could give him
Without
power over that,
objection to order.
which describes how Elon Musk were, quote, promised $3 billion across nearly 100 different contracts last
Without
year
objection
with
to
17
order.
federal agencies.
You got it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I also have a unanimous consent request, Mr. Chairman. I ask unanimous consent that the statements of the American Federation of Government Employees and National Active and Retired Federal Employees be entered into the record.
Without objection to order.
And I further ask unanimous consent that the article Doge Aid Search Medicare Agency also be entered into the record.
Without objection to order.
I thank the chair.
Chair recognizes Ms. Tlaib.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Since we're entering items to the record, it's really important, as I do a lot of these question lines, to center it around my constituents and my residents who very much feel like there's so much instability and chaos right now. So if I may, I would like to submit a letter from the CEO and founder of Cody Rouge Action Alliance in the 12th Congressional District in Michigan, just about the freezing of the funds and what it meant for her seniors and many of the community members that she supports. Many of them are retirees. Many of them rely heavily on this agency to, again, supplement the high cost of living right now for many of our families. And so if I may, I would ask unanimous consent to, again, send this letter.
Without objection, to ordered.
Thank you. You know, I want to cut through the BS because I am from Detroit and we like to speak truth to power and be very honest. You know, the American people feel very much we're in a constitutional crisis. They cannot understand, you know, this billionaire. I don't even know really how to describe him. Of course, he's the richest man in the world. And to think that he can just walk in to an agency that I can tell you for many of my families, from the Social Security, the Medicare, I mean, it is literally part of how they survive in our country. And it's not just about the private information. It's about the fact that this person who they have no way of, they didn't get to elect him. He's not held accountable to them, the community, the public. And so they are very much living in fear right now. And we are in a constitutional crisis. One of the things that I continue to talk to our ranking member about, and thinking about even the folks that voted for the president and others, if I was to ask the American people, do you think Elon Musk cares about you? Do they think that he cares about your disabled child that relies on Department of Education services through the IDEA Act? Do you think he cares for any of our families right now? No matter how hard they work, they're still in survivor mode, not thriving in our country. The disconnect that his own lived experience will never ever be able to connect to that family in North Dakota, to the teacher in Detroit, to the child living and trying to survive through the education program, living with autism, and so much more. And so I'm just curious. I mean, really, this is my, do you think Elon Musk cares about the American people, Mr. Shades?
I don't think that's the issue. I think the question is what is going to be done about the $36 trillion debt and the $2 trillion.
So you want to talk about the debt, but the Congress, they're in control. Why not go through the public process? If you want to make cuts, then vote to cut it. Why are you having this person do it? Are you giving him your power as an elected person representing 750,000 people? You represent equal number of people I do. I want to get a chance to vote on this, hear from my constituents, have it be done in a public process. You want to deal with it, you're in power. You have a trifecta, the White House, the Senate, and the House. But no, you want to do it this way. The cruelty of it. The fact that even American people, no matter their political affiliation, I'm telling you right now, feel like they have no control over the decisions being made. Why? Because members of Congress have circumvented and said, hey, we're good. Go ahead and do it for us. Go ahead. Even though they know it is going to impact farmers, veterans, disabled residents, folks living with disability, and so much more of these infrastructures that they don't understand support all of our families. So you can keep talking about the debt. They have control. They can deal with the debt if that's really what they want to do. Instead, they're just yielding their power to Elon Musk, who has, again, been unelected. And we can continue to say that. But one of the things you can go around the country is they don't want Elon Musk making that decision. They want their member of Congress that is elected making that decision, Mr. Shades. That's the problem. And I will never, and Mr. Chair knows this, vote your district. Come here and vote your district. If your district wants you to cut these various programs, go cut a public education, Department of Education, then go ahead and vote on it. Introduce a bill to cut the Department of Education. Do not say, hey, I don't have no constitution. You're just literally giving it to this person. It doesn't make any sense. Dr. Resch, do you think the American people think that Elon Musk cares about them?
I don't think the American people should really care what he thinks. They should have someone making decisions who's taken an oath to the Constitution.
Oh, that's actually very important, isn't it? You know, the Constitution gives Congress control over the spending, not the president, and certainly not Elon Musk. And the American people need to understand why that balance of government is there. It's to protect all of us from these kinds of decisions that are hurting people now. And Mr. Chair, just know this. This is the same man that continues to want to cut, but he has $20 billion in federal contracts. Can I get our money back? Because he is the richest man on earth, and he's still taking a handout from us, the public. $20 billion, Mr. Chair. If it's really about that and not about hurting these public infrastructures, which really are critical and important for, I guess, the most vulnerable, and really, you'd be surprised how many people in your community and in your districts, no matter, again, political affiliation, will be harmed by these decisions that, again, overpass the congressional public process. It's our constitutional duty and responsibility to be able to authorize spending and cuts. We should be able to do it, not Elon Musk. With that, I yield.
Gentlelady yields. That concludes our questions. In closing, I want to thank our witnesses once again for their testimony today. I'm now going to yield to the ranking member for some brief closing remarks.
I thank the chair and I thank our witnesses. You know, we've spent the entirety of this hearing under the rubric of right size in government, as if we all know presumptively what the right size is, which of course nobody does. In fact, it's not even necessarily a sensical question. But we have ignored half of what should be involved in any enterprise, business, nonprofit, or government, and that is the revenue side of the picture. You cannot right-size, whatever that means, government by only looking at expenditures and investments. You've got to look at how we finance it. Does anyone think that Elon Musk, in running Tesla, had a meeting when he took it over and said to his management crew, whatever we do, we are never again discussing or modifying the price of a Tesla? Whatever it is today, it's frozen forever. And all company profits will be derived from spending, expenditure cuts. Of course not. I heard the governor of Iowa say we ought to run government like a business. Well, then run it like a business. And that means there are two sides to the ledger, revenue as well as expenditure. I also heard the governor of Iowa say that there's nothing wrong with looking at the enterprise and making recommendations. I couldn't agree more. But that isn't what Elon Musk and company are doing. They're taking a wrecking ball to the federal government. They're firing people. They're intruding in very sensitive databases. They are threatening to close down entire departments and agencies of the federal government without any mandate, without any confirmation by the U.S. Senate, and without a howdy-do by the Congress of the United States. This committee and Congress cannot be supine in the face of that threat. We must play our legitimate role. And if my colleagues on the other side can muster a majority to, in fact, shut down these agencies, then so be it. But it cannot be something delegated to an unelected billionaire oligarch from South Africa. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I must say, there's been a virus that has been spreading throughout the inside of Congress for the past 4 years. It's called Trump derangement syndrome, but it appears over the last week it's mutated now into Musk derangement syndrome. And all we have here is a business guy, an outsider, much like many outsiders and many business people on the local and state levels all over America that have been asked essentially to serve on a board, to make recommendations, to make government more efficient. What a noble idea on the federal level. And we welcome Elon Musk. We welcome any individual in America who has ideas on making government more efficient. But I will say this publicly, to make government more efficient and to live within our means, which is what the American people voted for in November, we're going to have to make cuts. We're going to have to reduce the size of government. And that's not going to be an easy task. It's easy to spend money. Everybody's popular when they're spending unlimited amounts of money and doing check presentations and things like that. But when it gets to making cuts, that's tough. That's what people in the private sector have to do every day. That's what people who work and pay taxes and struggle to make ends meet have to do every day. They have to make tough financial decisions. Congress has been immune for that for a long time. But the day has come, and the American people have spoken, to where we're going to have to tighten our belts. And that's what at least my side of the aisle is committed to doing. And we're going to work with DOGE. We're going to work with the Trump administration. We're going to work with all of his cabinet secretaries. We're willing to work with Democrats across the aisle on sincere ideas to make government more efficient, to end duplicative services, to reduce wasteful spending. That's what we want to do. That's what this hearing was about. And I want to thank our witnesses who came here today to testify about that. With that and without objection, all members have 5 legislative days within which to submit materials and additional written questions for the witnesses, which will be forwarded to the witnesses. If there's no further business, without objection, the committee stands adjourned.
But it's not enough just to cut taxes. You have to make sure that they're sustainable, especially if you want to keep reducing them. The growth they create helps, but you also need to keep spending in government in check. And I've worked closely with our General Assembly to do just that. In fact, the Cato Institute has ranked Iowa the most fiscally responsible state in the country for 3 years running. But that wasn't always the case. When we started our alignment work in 2022, state operations had not been reviewed for 40 years, and it showed. Layers of bureaucracy had accumulated over decades, expanding government beyond its core function. We were too big, too fragmented, and too inefficient. One example became clear during COVID, where the separation of our public health and human services departments resulted in both duplication and gaps in service. We merged them into the Department of Health and Human Services in 2022, the first big step in our work to align state government. It was a successful proof of concept and a roadmap as we saw similar misalignment across state government. We had 11 separate state agencies operating workforce programs. 136 professional licensing functions were spread across 11 agencies. Our administrative code had ballooned to more than 20,000 pages with 190,000 restrictive terms. At one point, I discovered that the state owned a cow-calf operation, and to make matters worse, it operated at a loss. Given our limited staff and scope of the initiative, we partnered with an outside firm while bringing agency directors and their staff into the discussion early, and we asked the hard questions that bring about accountability and change. What is the core mission of each agency? How is it funded? How is it staffed? And what does it own? Are the programs working? How did the structure of the agency compare to other states? Is there duplication or misalignment? Next, we benchmarked Iowa against our neighboring states as well as those with similar populations and budgets. We found that my 37-member cabinet was the most by far, while our expenditures on a per capita basis were the third highest. In 2023, we eliminated we introduced, a 1,300-page bill that passed with only one technical amendment and took effect less than a year after we began the process. I also initiated a moratorium on new rulemaking and ordered a comprehensive review of all rules already on the books. Together, these actions cut 21 agencies from my cabinet, eliminated 600 open positions, removed 1,200 regulations in year one, and identified 4,700 acres of state-owned farmland to sell. Nearly all licensing functions are now in one agency, and we're currently in the process of consolidating 6 separate licensing platforms into one. One agency that operated out of 10 buildings now operates out of just one. Altogether, we've saved taxpayers $217 million in just 18 months, surpassing our initial projections for the first 4 years. And our government isn't just smaller, it's better. Getting your medical license recognized used to take 65 days, now it takes 3. Unemployment case rulings used to take 3 months, now it takes 11 days. Moving our motor vehicle enforcement unit into the Department of Public Safety put 100 more state troopers on the road. After aligning agencies, we then streamlined our system of boards and commissions, cutting 83 boards, about a third of the boards and commissions. We also brought IT systems spread across 20 different agencies into one department. And last year, we consolidated 32 substance use and mental health regions into 7 unified behavioral health regions, resulting in greater investment on the ground and treatment delivered to Iowans when and where they need it. And now we're taking yet another step. I recently announced my intention to launch an Iowa Doge to continue reducing the cost of government, maximizing the return on taxpayers' investment. Like most Americans, I'm thrilled by the priority that President Trump is placing on shrinking government and making it work better. Not only do I believe Iowa is a model, but I'm committed to doing everything I can to help in the months ahead, and I look forward to working with you and the Trump administration to do just that. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. I now recognize Mr. Schatz for his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Connolly, for the opportunity to testify today. Citizens Against Government Waste was founded following the report of the Grace Commission under President Ronald Reagan, the last time there was a comprehensive review of the federal government by the private sector. The Commission made 2,478 recommendations that would save $424.4 billion over 3 years. Since CAGW was created to follow up on the Grace Commission recommendations, we have helped save taxpayers $2.4 trillion through the implementation of Grace Commission and other cost-saving recommendations. The taxpayers' hard-earned money should be spent in the most effective manner possible, following the objectives set forth in statutes enacted by Congress and carried out by the executive branch. Success should be measured by whether the intended results are being achieved. If that does not occur, the program should be reevaluated to determine if it needs to be modified, consolidated, or terminated. The solution should not be to spend more money on that program, create another program, or duplicate what the private sector is already doing. The proper size of government can be determined after those actions are taken, but that is unfortunately not how it works now. Despite the availability of recommendations from both within the government, including the Congressional Budget Office, Government Accountability Office, and Inspectors General, as well as non-governmental sources like CAGW's Prime Cuts, which would save $5.1 trillion over 5 years, not enough is being done. There is no lack of ideas, just a lack of action by Congress to determine which programs are most effective and efficient, leading to the appropriate size and scope of the federal government. President Trump campaigned on a platform of making the government more efficient, including his promise to create a Department of Government Efficiency. The establishment of DOGE, along with the DOGE Subcommittee and House and Senate DOGE caucuses, should lead to the adoption of policies that will establish more effective use of taxpayer dollars and more efficient delivery of government services. Another method to drive efficiency would be to give the President greater reorganization authority, as the Chairman has noted. This was first provided in 1947, when Congress established what became known as the Hoover Commission to develop recommendations to increase efficiency and improve the organizational structure of the government after World War II. And comparing the debt to a GDP ratio then and now, it's fairly close, so it is certainly time to do this again. According to a 2012 Congressional Research Service report, presidents used this authority regularly, submitting more than 100 plans between 1932 and 1984. The last president to receive reorganization authority was Ronald Reagan, and the last one to use it was Jimmy Carter. In May 2024, GAO released its annual report on ways to reduce duplication, overlap, and fragmentation of programs. The report listed 112 new items and noted that $667 billion had been saved since the first report was issued in 2011. CAGW has long maintained that Congress should not only hold hearings in this committee, but across committees that have multiple jurisdiction over a lot of the programs identified by GAO, and then vote on those recommendations. And GAO reports about duplicative spending provide other opportunities to improve efficiencies. A May 10, 2023 GAO report found 133 federal programs across 15 agencies that have the goal of increasing broadband access and bridging the digital divide. These programs should be assessed to determine which are inefficient and ineffective, and funds should then be directed to those programs that can deploy broadband to every remaining unserved and underserved business and household across the country that wishes to be connected to the Internet. And broadband is one of many programs included in CAGW's Critical Waste Issues for the 119th Congress, which was released this morning. The report contains 12 policy areas, including greater accountability and transparency, budget reform, earmarks, health care, privacy, technology, and telecommunications. I want to also remind the committee of CAGW's concerns about the U.S. Postal Service, which we provided in testimony submitted for the record for the December 10, 2024 Oversight hearing. Right-sizing government is an objective on which all members of Congress should agree. It requires constant vigilance and oversight to determine if federal tax dollars are being spent in the most effective and efficient manner and achieving intended objectives. Increased efficiency will go a long way to restore the public's confidence in the ability of the federal government to avoid as much waste, fraud, abuse, and mismanagement as possible. Thank you again for the opportunity to appear before you today. I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Dr. Risch.
Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Connolly,
And make sure your microphone's on.
okay, sorry. Mr. Chairman,
And if you don't care, pull it to you. It's okay. Yeah. Now we're in business.
all right,
Thank you.
I'm so sorry. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you for having me, Ranking Member Conley and committee members. Thanks for the opportunity to address you today on the critical issue of right-sizing government that takes place amongst recent administrative actions that I find somewhat troubling, not just myself, but according to the literature, the scholarship, and observations through history, that show that these types of actions threaten integrity, effectiveness, and stability of our federal workforce. For decades, debates over the size of government have focused too narrowly on a head count of civilian employees, which obscures a more pressing concern than growing misalignment between federal responsibilities and the government's capacity to manage them. While the number of civilian and federal employees has remained stable at around 2.4 million, not including postal workers, federal spending has increased five-fold since the 1960s. More than $759 billion was spent on contracts in 2023 alone, and this is relatively small in comparison to the last year of the first Trump administration, where estimates were as high as $1.2 trillion in contracts, meaning that much of what government does today is carried through private firms rather than through career civil servants. Some estimate that there is as many as 3 to 4 contract employees for every federal civil servant, and this shift has weakened oversight, increased inefficiencies, and created accountability gaps, leaving taxpayers footing the bill for cost overruns on contracts, delays, and policy failures that come not from incompetence of the civil service, but from incapacity. At the same time, civil servants are underpaid relevant to their private sector counterparts, earning on average 23% less than similarly qualified professionals in the private sector. The salary gap, combined with mounting political pressures and the expanding scope of government responsibilities, has made it increasingly difficult to attract and retain top talent. This is particularly concerning given that 70% of federal employees work in national security roles, 80% serve outside of Washington, providing vital services to the communities across the country. And despite these challenges, recent administrative actions threaten to destabilize the civil service further by increasing politicization and eroding the principles of professional nonpartisan workforce. The so-called policy/career reclassification would strip job protections from tens of thousands of career civil servants, allowing them to be dismissed and replaced with political appointees at will. And this risks creating a climate of fear and self-censorship, where professionals hesitate to provide objective, evidence-based advice for fear out of political retaliation. History and research are clear. Governments that rely on merit-based civil service systems perform better. They're less prone to corruption and deliver more effective public services. By contrast, increased politicization, substituting experienced professionals with short-term political loyalists, reduces efficiency, complicates long-term planning, and increases the risk of policy failures. Beyond inefficiency, politicization weakens the very mechanisms that ensure accountability and integrity in government. Civil servants are often the last line of defense against waste, fraud, and abuse, ensuring that government funds are spent wisely and in accordance with the law. When experienced professionals are replaced by individuals selected for political loyalty rather than expertise, government oversight erodes and leads to costly mismanagement and a decline in public trust. This dynamic is not theoretical. It is played out in past administrations and has been extensively documented in research. Countries that move toward greater political control over bureaucracies see decline in effectiveness, increased regulatory capture, and greater difficulty in responding to crises. Conversely, nations that invest in independent professional civil service see better policy outcomes, stronger economic growth, and higher public confidence. The U.S. has long benefited from a stable, merit-based civil service that has helped sustain democracy through times of war, economic upheaval, and national crises. Attempts to weaken the system, rather than whether it's through mass firings, loyalty-based appointments, or the dismantling of institutional safeguards, do not lead to a more effective government. Instead, they result in greater instability, inefficiency, and governance failures that harm all Americans. In conclusion, any discussion of right-sizing government must grapple with the structural transformation that has already been underway. Rather than reducing the number of career civil servants or subjecting them to politically motivated purges, we should reinvest in the workforce to ensure that government functions effectively, remains accountable, and serves the public interest. The evidence overwhelmingly supports one clear lesson, that it is strengthening, not weakening, the civil service as the surest path to effective and democratic government that works for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll now begin our questions. The chair recognizes Dr. Gosar from Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're here today to tame the labyrinth of the federal bureaucracy. That's why I was elected, and frankly, that's why President Trump was reelected this past November. More responsible government spending means less need for taxation on the American people. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle have claimed cuts to waste, fraud, and abuse will include cuts to Social Security and Medicare. However, promoting efficiency and cutting wasteful spending actually protects Social Security and Medicare by ensuring available and continued funding. And if they have any more doubts, I would invite them to sign on to my Lasso Act that actually puts these decisions out of the public arm and into the public's domain. When Elon Musk acquired Twitter, now X, in 2022, he fired about 6,000 employees, or nearly 80% of his workforce. But there was no lapses in X's management. Well, perhaps only less community notes and less removal of unlawful lawful political speech. Elon Musk trimmed the fat on X, and we have the opportunity to do the same here in Washington. Governor Reynolds, not only did you lead a successful state-level government reorganization, but you did it twice. Congratulations. My question to you is, how did you identify waste, and were members of the state legislature empowered to also identify those areas with you?
Well, thank you for the question. It was definitely a collaborative effort. It started with the tax cuts, so we did comprehensive reform there, and as a manner to sustain it, then we needed to look at the overall government. When you coupled COVID on top of that and the inefficiencies that I saw in our response to COVID, it led us to start looking at processes in the state government. And so, you know, we brought, and they were common sense changes too. When we were looking at licensing, when we were looking at IT spread across 20 different agencies. I mean, the list went on and on. It made sense to restructure it. So what we did is we brought our, first of all, we brought our agencies in and their team and had them do an overall review of their operation, asking the tough questions that really leads to accountability and change. And then on top of that, because we are a small team, we also brought in an outside consultant to help us with the comparisons and help manage it. And then we worked closely with the legislature for any ideas that they may have. We spent a lot of time walking through the bill in its entirety. We put, when we were working with our agencies, that gave us an opportunity to understand where some of the pushback might be, so we could also get in front of that with the answers to the questions that might be posed from realigning state government. But it's made us more efficient. It's made us more effective. It is common sense. I think the data is proving out. We're seeing it every day. So we'll have data to actually point to on how we are more efficient and more effective. And we're taking dollars from the administration and from the bureaucracy, and we're actually putting it into programs, getting it on the ground and putting it into people. So it's been very efficient from that perspective as well.
Well, and I noticed you sold state-owned land to eliminate waste and generate revenue. Is that correct?
Yeah, we had about, I think it was about 5,400 acres that we were able to sell. I had a cow-calf operation with the Department of Corrections. We were not aware of that. Then to come to find out we were operating at a loss, that's, you know, we need to get back to the core function of government. And as the bureaucracy continues to grow, the scope also grows with it. And that's when we start to see the inefficiencies.
Well, I tell you what, that is music to my soul, because, you know, I've got a HERD Act because it mimics what Harry Reid did in southern Nevada. He found out that Las Vegas was surrounded by BLM. He couldn't grow it.
Yeah.
And so what they did is they found out that the federal government has the propriety to look at what the land's used for. Does it have a purpose? And if not, it has to be sold. So I think there's great opportunity there. Mr. Schatz, I want to touch base with you in regards to the 2024 Prime Cuts Report recommends that the National Park Service, Forest Service, and BLM suspend federal land purchases until they effectively manage their currently owned land. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Do you generally agree that selling public land to states and local communities would eliminate unused assets, generate revenue, and provide an overall benefit to the federal government and to local communities?
Yes, Congressman, and it would generate about $15 billion over 5 years. Sorry, 3 years. So there's a lot of land out there. In fact, the government probably doesn't even know what it owns.
Yes. Now,
and it needs to get done.
The one thing I really want to make note of, and I get running out of time here, is the National Emergencies Act. We have spent $12 trillion over the last, since Bill Clinton, and it's 1/3 of our national debt. I would love to work with you in regards to cleaning these up, cleaning them out, and getting some aspects and assets back to the people. Thank you. I yield back, Mr.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes ranking member for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your consideration. Governor Reynolds, welcome, and your story is a very impressive one. I was the chairman of a county of 1.2 million people, one-third your population, and what you talk about resonates with somebody like me, hands-on, trying to make sure things work.
Right.
Iowa has a population, as I understand it, of 3.24 million people, and you've got a state workforce of 16,700 full-time employees. Is that correct? That's correct?
Yes.
Now, of course, with respect to the federal government, we're talking about 2.4 million. So it's not only a matter of scale. I mean, we're just talking about very different kinds of entities. That doesn't mean we can't learn from a state like Iowa, but I do think that the challenges we face at the federal level are, formidably different than what we face in my county or your state. As I said, doesn't mean we can't learn from it at all. And I listened carefully to you. Is my understanding correct that in order to effectuate the reforms you proudly championed today, you put on the payroll your wealthiest donor who came in and decided what agencies to abolish, which cabinet members were to go, how many people were to be fired, and other kinds of decision-making that was imbued with him or her. Is that how you did it in Iowa? Your
No.
wealthiest donor took that
No,
lead?
that's a complete misstatement. And first of all, we did it without any layoffs whatsoever. We made that commitment when we moved into our
No
realignment.
layoffs.
Absolutely no layoffs.
Well,
I was able to eliminate 600 open positions that had been open for over a year. But through the transition process and what we've been able to accomplish, we did that right now without laying off any state
and
employees.
excuse me, because my time is limited, Governor, I don't mean to be interrupting you, but so the idea that your wealthiest donor kind of shepherded all of this is false.
That is false.
That's false. And you didn't lay off people. You tried, in fact, to move people around, or
No, we made that commitment at the beginning
you
of
made
the
a
process.
commitment to that.
Because first of all, these were common sense changes. It was a realignment. It was
Got it.
highlighting the cabinet members that I thought should be in the cabinet,
I think
and
that-
making government operate more efficiently,
I think
reducing
that's
the amount of
a
time.
very Iowan concept, too. Common sense.
Yes.
And I like it. It's a non-ideological approach to governance. Professor Resch, would it be fair to say that what you've heard from Governor Reynolds is distinctly different from what we are experiencing in the first 15 days of the Trump administration with Elon Musk allegedly at the helm? And please speak loudly into that microphone so we can hear you.
Yes.
Yes.
Quite simply, yes.
Very different.
It seems different, yes.
And would you say that it is unprecedented, unusual, and maybe even of dubious legality that so much authority and power has been vested in one individual who is a outside billionaire with no government experience other than benefiting from government contracts to wield this kind of power and influence and be firing people, laying off people, threatening to dismantle whole agencies, something that apparently Governor Reynolds actually actively tried to avoid to get political buy-in and to try to create a spirit of cooperation?
It seems to me that the actions that are being promulgated by DOJ lack legal authority. I am not a legal scholar. I am a scholar of executive politics and public management. But from what I can tell, this violates several legal authorities that are granted by Congress, not unilaterally by the president.
Governor Reynolds made a point of saying she worked with the legislature to effectuate the reforms, which always sounds to me like a pretty good idea. You want to work with your legislators. Here in Washington, there are laws on the books. For example, you may want to dismantle the Agency for International Development, but Congress created AID, that agency, in the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961, and it seems to me that if you want to dismantle it or fold it into another agency, you got to come back to Congress and amend that act. Do you think that's a fair statement?
I think that's a fair statement.
And likewise, when it comes to freezing funding for federal agencies. You know, the Impoundment Control Act of 1974 governs impoundment, and the Supreme Court ruling during the Nixon years made it very clear that the power of the purse is exclusively vested in the legislative branch of Congress under the Constitution of the United States. Is that a fair statement?
It's a fair statement, and it's the standing position of the
I'm
court.
sorry?
I said it's a fair statement, and it's the standing position of the courts.
Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes Ms. Mace from South Carolina for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's been a lot of pearl clutching over the last several days from my colleagues across the aisle on Donald Trump, Secretary Rubio, the Department of Government Efficiency's plan to reorganize the U.S. Agency for International Development, or as we all now know, USAID. They're screaming about Elon Musk over there, but hey, George Soros and his boy are okay. You know, they scream that we're all a threat to democracy when they've been systematically dismantling democracy before our eyes. They've been caught with their hand in the cookie jar. And there's no going back. So I would tell my colleagues across the other side of the aisle, take your salty tears and sit right back down. USAID has long strayed from its mission to effectively and efficiently administer aid to advance American interests. USAID has become rotten to its core, sacrificing the prudent use of taxpayer dollars at the altar of advancing radical, sinister social and political agendas abroad. From discriminatory DEI initiatives to extreme gender ideology to marginalize real bona fide biological women. For decades, while homeless veterans sleep on our streets, our communities rebuild from natural disasters, and American families struggle to get by, USAID has pillaged and plundered the American treasury, essentially lighting American taxpayer dollars on fire, funding some of the dumbest, I mean stupidest, just dumbest initiatives imaginable, all supported by the left, and that's why their party is crumbling. Today I'm going to expose some of the initiatives USAID has funded over the years and ask each of you a yes or no question. If you believe these expenditures of American taxpayer dollars put America first, so it'll be yes or no. USAID awarded $2 million to strengthen trans-led organizations to deliver gender-affirming health care in Guatemala. So to each of you this morning, does this advance the interests of American citizens paying for trannies in Guatemala to the tune of $2 million? Yes or no? Governor?
No. I have no position.
Of course you don't. Okay, USAID awarded over $750,000 to fund alleviating loneliness among migrant garment workers in India. Does this advance America's interests, Governor?
No.
No. I have no position.
USAID awarded $1.5 million for providing a gender-sensitive response to migration at the Venezuelan border. Does this advance America's interests, Governor?
No.
No. I have no position.
Does this advance the interests? Okay, so USAID awarded $4.3 million on October 1st, 2023 to a group to fund comprehensive health services for men having sex with other men in South Africa. Does this advance the interests of American citizens, Governor?
No.
No. I have no position.
I bet you don't. Okay. USAID awarded $1.5 million to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities by promoting economic empowerment and opportunity for LGBTQI plus people in Serbia. Does this advance America's interests?
No.
No. Nope.
You have no idea, right? Okay. USAID awarded over $70,000 to a group to deliver a live musical event to promote the U.S. and Irish shared values of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Does this advance the interests of America?
No.
No. No position.
No position or no clue. Okay, USAID awarded $1.5 million to fund strengthening community support structures to upscale LGBT rights advocacy in Jamaica. Does this advance our interests?
No.
No. No position.
USAID awarded $28 million to a group to facilitate the economic insertion of Venezuelan migrants and refugees in Peru and Ecuador. Does this advance our interests?
No.
No.
No position.
Okay, USAID awarded $17.5 million to fund voluntary medical male circumcision overseas. Does this advance America's interests?
No.
No.
No position.
I don't know what circumcision overseas has to do with America First either. USAID awarded nearly $150,000 to fund HIV prevention services targeting men who have sex with men and transgender. Does this advance America's interests?
No.
No.
No position.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm limited to 5 minutes, but these are the programs Democrats are so desperate to save. Our foreign assistance system is badly broken, and this ends now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back.
Mr. Chairman, parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, sir.
The gentlelady has used a phrase that is considered a slur in the LGBTQ community and the transgender community. And let me please finish without interruption. And
Tranny, tranny, tranny. I don't really care. You want penises in women's bathrooms, and
Chairman.
I'm not going to have it.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Let
It's disgusting.
the gentleman state his parliamentary inquiry.
to me, a slur is a slur, and here in the committee, a level of decorum requires us to try consciously to avoid slurs. You just heard the gentlelady actually actively, robustly repeat it, Chairman, that she be counseled that we ought not to be engaged. We can have debate and policy discussion without offending human beings who are our fellow citizens. And so I would ask, as a parliamentary inquiry, whether the use of that phrase is not, in fact, a violation of the decorum rules.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to be counseled by a man over men and women's spaces or men who have mental health issues dressing as women. I'm not being counseled by some guy.
My inquiry is to the
over
chairman,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Order. The inquiry is about decorum. Decorum is at the discretion of the chair.
that's
I will be
mansplaining,
honest,
Mr. Chairman.
with the ranking member. I'm not up to date on my politically correct LGBTQ terminology. We'll look into that and get back with you on that. I don't know what's offensive and what's not. I don't know much about pronouns or
I appreciate that, Mr.
offensive
Chairman.
terms. in
Mr.
that
Chairman, we don't have to
community.
anymore.
So,
I thank the chair for his willingness to further engage in this matter.
all right. Chair now recognizes Ms. Norton from Washington, D.C. for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is only the second oversight hearing this Congress. The first one was about denigrating federal employees. This one is about denigrating federal employees, too. The Trump administration, including the Trump shadow government, seems intent on dismantling much of the federal government in violation of the Constitution, statutes, and regulations. The administration has relentlessly attacked federal employees, subjecting them to chaos and fear. The administration has imposed a hiring freeze, offered deferred resignation, fired employees, put employees on leave, effectively established Schedule F, and ended telework and remote work. Our two hearings so far are designed to lay the predicate to gut the nonpartisan federal civil service and to convert a significant portion of the remaining civil service into political appointees. Federal workers deserve praise for their expertise, dedication, and service, not derision. Thousands of civil federal servants have given their lives in the line of duty for the country. Instead of attacking federal employees, this committee should be considering bills to support the federal workforce, such as my bill to combat federal pay compression, or my bill to make permanent the free identity protection coverage that Congress required OPM to temporarily provide to individuals whose social service numbers were potentially compromised during the OPM data breaches. As I said at our last hearing, this committee can do better for the American people. And I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Would the gentlelady please yield to the ranking member?
Be glad to.
Chair recognizes ranking member.
I thank the
For,
chair.
it was 2 minutes and 10 seconds.
I thank the gentlelady. Dr. Resch, could you elaborate just a little bit more on your answer to the previous question about sort of unelected, superannuated appointees who are not subject to the advice and consent of the United States Senate and have arrogated apparently to themselves, either with or without the acquiescence or consent of the president himself, enormous powers? I mean, could you elaborate a little bit on that, on how unprecedented that is, and what are the dangers? What could go wrong with that? Why should we be concerned? And please speak louder into that microphone.
Yes, sir. So the problems that can arise from a lack of accountability are many, particularly in the form of DOJ. We see a person that is leading it that is entangled in billions upon dollars of federal contracts, has an empire that is regulated across various industries, across various agencies. Having a person that is potentially influencing where workforce cuts might take place without any transparency as to the decision-making potentiates conflicts of interest, particularly in those domains in which he is regulated or in which he has contracts with various agencies.
And interestingly enough, you heard Governor Reynolds' testimony about her process. This is not how they did it in Iowa.
No, I'm very impressed with her reforms, but it had nothing to do with politically connected individuals deciding.
And one of the cautions I heard you say is we've got to also be concerned about conflicts of interest when that same individual, imbued with all these powers, has government contracts.
I would say that across the contract state, there are laws, but they are very weak in terms of regulating the extent to which political donations can be made by large contractors.
I thank the gentlelady for yielding.
Chair recognizes Mr. Grofman from Wisconsin.
Thank you much. A lot of other people have weighed in on Mr. Musk, so I felt I should weigh in just as briefly. In another committee, we are waiting on an opportunity to publicize a study showing that on this transgender lifestyle, the more you talk about it, the more you get. And if you don't talk about it like they don't in Europe, there are not that many people going into it. And therefore, I'd like to thank Mr. Musk and Mr. Trump when they found out that we were talking about this stuff or apparently promoting it in other countries. They slammed the brakes on that agency really quick, which was, I think, the right and moral thing to do. And it's unfortunate the United States government was apparently engaging in activity that would increase the people choosing that lifestyle. Now, I was in the state legislature for many years before I got here, Governor Reynolds, and quite frankly, one of the reasons I ran for this job is again and again I wanted to do things at the state level and was told I couldn't because it was federal law. I wonder if you can give us some examples of things, and whether it be health care, education, welfare, what have you, where you wish you could do things in Iowa but can't do them because of federal mandates.
The list is long, especially as we've aligned government and become more efficient. I would say the lack of accountability was what I saw in the incomplete review that we did. We reviewed over 800 agency programs in which there was not one KPI, there was not one metric, there was not one accountability measure tied to any of it whatsoever with the existing programs. And so nothing comes before me now from my agency, my cabinet, without a KPI and a metric tied to it if they want to, continue the program or if they want to add to it. But I can talk about a couple different things. SNAP would be one example. We have an antiquated system, as does a lot of the governments, especially the federal government. And right now we have about 500 workers that are doing eligibility manually, validating it from a dozen different points. And we have, of course, have a fairly high error rate, of which there are fines attached to a delay, a timeliness and error rate. I have asked FNS for just the opportunity to issue an RFP so I can get a system that would allow me to use technology to collect all of the different data points, reduce the timeline and the error rate and the fines that my state is being charged. And I have been waiting for over a year to get an approval just on an RFP to go out and select a vendor to be able to offer that. And then it has to go back to them for a sign off on that. CMS is just another nightmare. We've waited up to 3 years to get managed care rate approvals. I have a Thrive platform that I'm trying to put in place, which is a public-private partnership, which would allow faith-based organizations and nonprofits to help Iowans in need to partner with what we're doing at the government, at the state level. And we have, again, waited over a year just to simply get them to sign off on the RFP so that I can implement technology and serve my constituents, especially those in need, in a better manner. And, we see this time and time again, especially with CMS, just the delay in getting the answers. There's a cost of money in that, and we're not able to effectively serve the citizens in our reflective states.
If you could, are there ways you change these programs that you feel would reduce dependency, reduce the number of people on programs, but can't because of federal law?
Well, because I can't even move forward. I mean, when I'm getting fined because I can't aggregate the data. We collect a lot of data at the state level, but we can't aggregate it. And I'm trying to stand up a system that would allow us to do that, and they're preventing us from doing that by simply signing off on an RFP so that we can move forward.
Okay, I'll give you another.
A block grant would be another example. Department of Education is a great example of how we could do things differently with the ESSA title funding formula. Every single, there's 10 different streams. They all have different funding formulas. They all have different requirements. They all have different outcomes. And if we could streamline those into one formula with consistency across it and block grant that back to the states and give us the flexibility to be innovative and to really meet the various needs in our states. They're all different.
Do you think you get people out of the special education system quicker if you have more flexibility?
Yeah. So that's another example. We could tie the two together, and it could be based on the state plan. I had the AEA, Area Agency Educators, are what run the special education program in our state. It's about $530 million with state and federal funding. Not one person that I talked to, not a school board, not a teacher, not anybody in the AEA system could tell me the cost of providing a service. So when you continue to grow government, those types of questions, those types of analysis aren't even taking place. They just need more money, or they want to know if they've spent all of it. There's never an evaluation that's done. There's never an accountability. There's no transparency. And that's why we're getting the results that we're getting. Our scores are horrible. And when I tried to bring some accountability to the system, shut down. So it's happening at the state and federal level, but if we can work collectively together, I think we can get the results that we're looking for.
Thank you very much. A big mistake whenever we do anything on a federal level.
Chair now recognizes Mr. Lynch from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As former chairman of the Subcommittee on National Security on this committee many years ago, and as a member for many years as well. We had the opportunity to work extensively with members on both sides of the aisle, Mr. Grothman and others, to conduct oversight of our federal security clearance process. We had a very bad instance in the 2018 timeframe where our security clearance process that was conducted at OPM was hacked by the Chinese. And so they were able to get the identities of anybody who had appeared to try to get security clearance. It was a major intelligence failure. So in 2020, members on this committee and others, especially the Intelligence Committee, made an agreement that we shifted that responsibility over to DOD. And so since then, since 2020, the Department of Defense, it's called the Counterintelligence and Security Agency, DCSA, has been conducting those security clearance applications. And they've been doing very, very well compared to what was going on before. The problem is this, that on day one of his new term, President Trump took an end run around our entire national security apparatus by allowing White House counsel to grant new White House officials immediate security clearance at the top secret and sensitive compartmental information level, even though many of those individuals were not treated with the traditional vetting by the FBI. So top secret SCI security clearance allows individuals to access classified intelligence sources and methods. So these are some of our nation's most sensitive pieces of information, which could cause exceptionally grave damage to U.S. national security and to our intelligence personnel and others who cooperate with them if it was exposed. Dr. Resch, to make matters worse, Mr. Trump has now given Elon Musk and his so-called Doge team unfettered access to Treasury Department and Office of Personnel Management and other federal agencies and systems that manage personnel files, confidential payment systems, and highly classified information. What are the risks? What are the risks of sidestepping the existing security clearance process run by DOD that has worked very, very well to protect our intelligence personnel?
I think some of the risks are substantial, particularly given the extent to which this data could be used in training foundational models that Mr. Musk and his team could use to do this data analysis. I have no idea, actually no one has any idea exactly what servers are being used with the access to this data. There is privileged information that the Doge team could use to position themselves or their private interests as players in government contracts for satellite deployment, defense technology, even orbital logistics. He could leverage his ties to Trump to position his own foundational model, XAI, to have exclusive access to protected individual government data to train the models that are really black boxed. Could wield the advantage to undercut competition, shape the AI landscape in fairly frightening ways if this private individual information and government protected data is being used to train those models. Now, this is speculation, pure speculation, because I don't know and neither do you. And frankly, no one does. But beyond creating better performing models, exclusive access to government data would give a significant edge in securing long-term contracts.
But Dr. Resch,
yes.
Beyond the speculation, why is it important that sensitive information is only handled by those who have been vetted and granted access to that information?
Well, for exactly these reasons, so that it cannot be used for corruptible purposes. Yeah, There are positions in place for our federal career employees to pass through various ethics and conflicts of interest thresholds that SGEs just simply do not have.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, my time has expired. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes Dr. Fox from North Carolina.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I thank our witnesses for being here today to talk about this important subject. Governor Reynolds, as you're aware, our sprawling federal government has over 400 executive branch agencies and sub-agencies and nearly 1,000 federal boards and commissions. We must reduce the burden and cost of the federal government. With your government reorganization reforms in the state of Iowa, you are able to reduce the number of cabinet-level departments and eliminate many state boards and commissions. What was the impact of your reorganization effort?
Well, thank you for that question. I appreciate it very much. Actually, just the efficiencies and just the culture in state government. I now have a cabinet that communicate, that work together, that come up with innovative ideas on their own. And I would have, with a 37-member cabinet, I wouldn't know the people that were in the room, and it's just not manageable. 37 direct reports is not manageable, and so to be able to streamline the cabinet and to lay out a vision and get them excited about the direction that we're taking the state, and whether it's the time that it takes to get a physician's license, it went from 65 days to 1. Whether it talks about when you're getting a building permit, you used to have to go to 3 different agencies, now you go to 1. To be able to have IT all in one department, when that cyber attack hit with CrowdStrike, because we had all of our IT in one agency, we were able to get the state of Iowa back up and going shortly after lunch, and some of the states were out for weeks in businesses. So we're more responsive, we're more effective, we're serving citizens better, and again, not only are we returning taxpayer dollars back to our citizens and continuing to reduce the tax burden on them, but we're also utilizing those dollars in a better manner. We're reducing the administrative cost when you add federal administrative cost, and then when you have 3 different agencies that you're running through, each one of them are taking an administrative cost off of the top. And so by consolidating and realigning, that puts that money back into the programs, back into the ground, and back into serving Iowans. And it also gives me the visibility now that I have into the various agencies because of the reduction. We can continue to get better, and we're continuing to make changes, and we will, and a lot of those are coming directly from the cabinet.
Let me follow up a little bit. Given your successful reorganization, what advice do you have for the Trump administration to reduce the cost and size of the government? And what advice do you have for Congress to work with the Trump administration to do this?
Well, don't buy into the fact that you can't do it. You can do it, and it needs to be done. There's just so much waste at all levels of government, at the federal, at the state, and at the local levels, and we're all serving the same constituency. We need to do it better. Every time there's a duplication, that's a cost to the taxpayer. So we need to think about it holistically, and we need to think about how we can streamline the way in which we're providing these services. I'm a big advocate for block grants back to the states. Again, I think that, reduces a lot of the overhead, a lot of the bureaucracy. It streamlines. It takes an army of people to manage the federal programs that are coming in, especially with the Department of Education, and then the school districts also have to take people off their line of sight on really educating our students, and they're doing compliance instead of working on instruction. So it makes us all better.
Thank you, Governor, for being a shining light for us. Mr. Schatz, the Grace Commission created by President Reagan in 1982 claimed that if its recommendations were followed, the national debt would have been $1.9 trillion by the year 2000. Its recommendations were not followed. Instead, the debt reached $5.6 trillion in 2000 and skyrocketed to over $36 trillion today. How can President Trump, DOJ, and Congress ensure that today's government reorganization and reform efforts actually get implemented and start reducing our massive debt?
Thank you, Representative Fox. The Grace Commission did save money. President Reagan had $100 billion immediately by executive action. In 10 years, $240 billion, and again, over time, $2.4 trillion from the Grace Commission and other cost-saving recommendations by CIGW. It takes Congress and the executive branch working together. 400 agencies, 1,000 commissions, that's far too much. The budget has only been balanced 5 times in the last 50 years. Think about that. If you're a family and you only balance your budget 5 times in 50 years, you're pretty much broke. And whatever and however it gets done, something needs to be done. And it may not be comfortable for a lot of people, but it really is time to move forward quickly, because if we don't, it's our children and grandchildren that will suffer. Social Security is already spending more than it takes in. So a lot of examples of what needs to be fixed and quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Schatz. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Chair recognizes Mr. Krishnamurti from Illinois.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Mr. Schatz. On the campaign trail, Donald Trump said on August 15, 2024, grocery prices have skyrocketed. When I win, I will immediately bring down prices starting on day one. You don't dispute that, right?
That was a statement, yes.
Unfortunately, the price of groceries and eggs have only risen since Donald Trump took office. According to the USDA, the wholesale cost of a dozen eggs has increased from $6.59 on Inauguration Day until now it's $7.53, a 14% increase. Again, you don't dispute that, right?
No.
I assume you're not happy with this particular increase either, right?
Well, I wish the bird flu wasn't around, but it is. So.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. According to PBS and Axios, some of the reasons for high grocery prices and high egg prices are avian flu and recalls related to salmonella and listeria. You don't dispute that, right?
Correct.
My staff went back and checked the hundreds of executive orders that have been issued by Donald Trump, and yet not a single one has mentioned the words avian flu. You don't dispute that, right?
As far as I know, that's correct.
And not one has mentioned shutting down salmonella, right?
I don't know if you can shut down a salmonella, but
Or
I guess
combating salmonella?
so. Again, if you say
And not one has mentioned listeria?
Again, if you say so.
Well, I don't see a single executive order that will do anything to address high grocery prices or egg prices. This hearing is about right-sizing the federal workforce. I think we should right-size the cost of eggs, Mr. Schatz. Governor Reynolds, in your testimony, you said that the state of Iowa hired an, quote, outside firm to assist you with your efforts to modernize Iowa state government, right? Yes. Of course, at no time did you allow this outside firm to ever control Iowa's state payment systems, right?
Correct.
And of course, you did not at any time give this outside firm access to the private personal information of all Iowans in the state's payment systems, did you?
No.
Of course not. Let's talk about what has happened with Doge for a moment. According to this letter, which was sent by the Treasury Department, Jonathan Bloom of the Treasury Department, a Doge affiliate of Elon Musk is now, quote, a special government employee with access to the coded data of the Fiscal Services Payment System. This is the most important federal payment system in the nation, responsible for making $6 trillion in payments every year to hundreds of millions of Americans. And just moments ago, Politico just disclosed that Doge now has access to all Medicare and Medicaid payments as well. Now, Elon Musk is in charge of Doge, Governor Reynolds. He has not been confirmed by the Senate to any position in the federal government, right?
No.
And he has not been elected by anybody to anything, right?
Correct.
He has not, to your knowledge, given a financial disclosure to Congress, correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
Ma'am, I want to bring your attention to something very disturbing that Musk just recently tweeted out. As we see at this visual, he said, the Doge team is rapidly shutting down illegal payments to Lutheran Family Services. Musk retweeted a post from Michael Flynn likening Lutheran Family Services to, quote, a money laundering operation. Governor, you don't believe that the Lutheran Church or Lutheran Family Services is a money laundering operation, correct?
Look, I can tell you that in Iowa, the taxpayers of Iowa hold me personally responsible and accountable for state government, just as they hold President Trump
The
accountable for
Lutheran
his
Church is
as
not
the
a money
President of the
laundering
United
operation,
States.
right?
And the election that we
Ma'am,
just
Des
went
Moines,
through,
Iowa
I
is
think,
the home to the
Americans
largest Lutheran
overwhelmingly-
congregation in the United States.
Iowans overwhelmingly.
Is the Lutheran Church a money laundering operation?
Listen,
Of course not.
first of all, every program should be looked at.
Is the-
and
is the-
that's what we're trying to do.
Okay,
You have
the
to look
Lutheran
at,
Family
I looked
Church
at
has some
800,
connection to money laundering? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm not saying
Is
that,
it
but I
quick
said
answer,
every.
yes or no
I am-
question. Is it a
is not
money,
yes or no
laundering
question.
operation?
I can't speak to that.
You can't speak to that. Oh my God. Let's go to this USAID issue. The USAID purchases crops from Iowa farmers. Recently, Elon Musk called it a criminal organization. Purchasing crops from Iowa farmers is not a criminal activity, correct?
I am the governor of Iowa.
Yes or no?
I
Is
don't
that a
have
criminal
anything-
activity?
I am the governor of Iowa, and I don't work with USAID. It is not a position,
purchasing
and I'm
crops
not going to
from
weigh in.
Iowa farmers a criminal operation?
In general, purchasing crops from Iowans is not.
Thank you. I yield back.
Chair now recognizes Mr. Biggs from Arizona.
Thank you, Governor Reynolds and Mr. Schatz. Thanks for being here. In 2021, Governor Reynolds, you led the state of Iowa in challenging OSHA's unconstitutional private sector COVID-19 vaccine mandate. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to the filed lawsuit by Governor Reynolds and Governor Reynolds' November 5th, 2021 press release be entered into the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. In that suit, Iowa, Arizona, my state, and 9 other states argued that the federal government lacks the constitutional authority under its enumerated powers to issue this mandate, and its attempt to do so unconstitutionally infringes on the state powers expressly reserved by the 10th Amendment. That's what the lawsuit said, Governor, and I agree with that. And guess who else agreed with it? The courts agreed with it. And it was the same vaccine mandate that led me to introduce my legislation, which is pending. It's called NOSHA, which would return to the states the authority to regulate workplace health and safety. And I noticed that Iowa and Arizona, along with 20 other states, currently operate under an OSHA state plan.
Right.
Is it correct that to approve a state plan, OSHA certifies that the state's workplace health and safety plans exceed federal requirements?
Yes.
And Iowa, like Arizona, has maintained an approved state plan since 1985.
Yes.
Do you believe that state officials and the people of Iowa are better positioned to set workplace health and safety standards than the federal government?
I do.
If the power to set these standards were returned fully to the states, would you maintain Iowa's existing high standards for workplace safety, or would you make it your mission to put your constituents at risk of danger in the workplace?
I would keep it as exemplary as it is right now.
Thank you. Let's go to a different topic, kind of where you've been when my colleague wouldn't let you answer questions, but we'll try to get there here. So our nation's $36 trillion in debt with a structural deficit. That's a structural deficit, not a cyclical deficit, of $2 trillion each year, and it's rising. Just last year, for the first time, payments on interest on our debt alone eclipsed our defense budget. Meanwhile, we're losing hundreds of billions of dollars annually to waste, fraud, abuse, improper payments, etc. Mr. Schatz, thanks for your testimony today. If you're tasked with stopping taxpayers from being defrauded in transfer payment programs, could that be accomplished without a thorough review of how the federal government actually sends money out the door?
Absolutely not. In order to determine how the money is being spent, somebody has to see what it looks like. And that's been a big problem for a long time, is no one's looked at it. They just make the payments, and they don't prevent it from being wasted when it goes out of the door.
Governor Reynolds, you've done great work in Iowa. I've watched it. Your model for, that you've provided for the country is fantastic. Did your reorganization include reviews and improvements to state systems focused on stopping waste, fraud, and abuse, as Mr. Schatz described?
It absolutely did. And with the realignment and the visibility, as I said earlier, that I now have into each agency, it gives us even more opportunities to continue to refine and make our systems better. You know, it's not a matter of, there's money in the system. We're just not using it efficiently and effectively. And there's no accountability. There's no transparency. And this has allowed us to bring that to the forefront.
Right, and so I'm going to ask you, Governor Reynolds, and then you, Mr. Schatz, to respond to this. When you get an opportunity to look at line-by-line budgeting, where the expenses go, that allows you to make adjustments to what is really critical on fraud, waste, duplicative programs, et cetera.
Yeah, especially the duplicate and the fraud. It allows us to review them line by line and make decisions accordingly.
Yeah. Mr. Schatz.
That's correct. In fact, the federal government does not have anything online where taxpayers can see exactly how every penny is being spent. Ohio has an Ohio checkbook. You can look it up online. There are so many things that are not done here the way they're done, not just in the private sector, but along the states. And I know there have been efforts to modernize technology with 80% of the IT being legacy systems. Government is far behind in providing the transparency taxpayers need. That's part of what they're trying to do.
Yeah, so I'm actually baffled that instead of cheering the administration's efforts to conduct a thorough and necessary review of the systems, they're receiving, these doomsday scenario statements that they want to stop it. And I don't know why you want to stop it. I mean, in my home state of Arizona, we actually do the same thing. You can go online and you can see a line by line. I asked for a line by line, one single agency. I just wanted one agency. Can you give me a line by line budget to look at? They brought me 2 books like this, and none of them were line by line. They didn't cover every program within that agency. They didn't describe everything that was there. This is what we have to correct if we're going to get out of our structural deficit hole. And I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Witnesses.
Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes Mr. Khanna from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Schatz, you have said that you believe that the Department of Education should not exist, that you grew up without the Department of Education, had a good education, and you believe it should go to the states and local government. Is that an accurate representation of your position?
Yes.
I just want to understand clearly where you stand. So that would mean that you oppose any Title I funding that helps many public schools. It's about $18 billion, 2.8 million American students are impacted. Yes or no, would you be for cutting that $18 billion?
I didn't say to eliminate the programs within the Department of Education. I said the department itself should be eliminated.
So
that money should be
where would you stand on the Title I funding?
Well, that money should be assessed to determine whether it's being used effectively. Governor Reynolds mentioned how many different ways that money is being spent.
For right now, would you want that money paused, or do you think the money should be dispersed, the $18 billion?
I think it's something that Congress needs to determine, and the administration
The Congress, not the...
Both. Both.
Look. No, but it's a simple question. Do you think the $18 billion that Congress has appropriated and authorized should be dispersed?
At the moment, it should be dispersed because that's been the law to disperse it.
And you're for examining it and then possibly cutting it?
If there's a more effective way to look, the spending has gone up. Test scores have gone like this or down.
Do you understand the difference between correlation and causation?
What's happened is that spending has gone higher. Education is not improved.
Yeah, but they're also
That's
the state budget, because I don't want to get into the difference between correlation and causation, but just a simple question on Title I. So you would be for examining it, but possibly cutting it, and that's your...
That's possible. Everything in the federal government needs to be re-examined.
Pell Grants, 7,395 of the neediest low-income students annually get these grants. It has helped about 6.7 million students. Would you be for cutting Pell Grants?
I think, again, it needs to be looked at and examined to determine if it's
possibly cutting them?
Anything is possible. And that's a different category. That's an entitlement. That's not discretionary.
So you do believe they should be dispersed today?
One of the problems with programs like Pell Grants are that they're not examined as much as they should be.
Do you agree, though, that Elon Musk, I've just been going back and forth with him on Twitter. He said, don't be a dick. I said, make sure you follow the Constitution. But do you agree that he has no authority to stop payments on anything that Congress has authorized and appropriated?
I think that's being tested, but I think generally that should be correct.
If he were asking you, would you advise him to not stop payments that have been authorized and appropriated by Congress?
Well, my statement said that Congress has appropriated money or provided money And there should be an examination of the results of how that money is being spent. That's what I think should be done.
I missed the earlier procedural vote. I just want to make clear, I think that Mr. Musk should come and testify before this committee to explain that he is not going to stop payments at all for money that Congress has authorized and appropriated. Now, the IDEA program, that's about $14.2 billion. Would you stop the funding or cut the funding for the IDEA program that helps kids with disabilities?
Again, something that Congress needs to review to determine if it's achieving its mission. That's the whole point of everything that we've been talking
Now, you realize
about.
that a lot of local and state governments complain because the IDEA program was supposed to be funded at 40%. Jared Huffman, my colleague, has a bill to do that. We only fund it at 15%. The school districts complain that they have an unfunded mandate, and you're saying maybe we should cut even more than the 15%?
I didn't say cut. I said it should be examined to determine if it's being effective and whether the money should
Do
go
you believe
back
it's
to the
being
states
effective?
entirely. Look, I think the Department of Education has proven that it has not provided the results
Let me
that
just,
Congress
we got 1 minute.
needs to provide.
Just, do you believe in these three things? Title I funding, Pell Grants, and IDEA. Tell me if you think they have been effective or have not been effective. IDEA grants.
I am honestly not familiar with that program as much as some of the others.
Okay, I mean that's.
But
one of
that's
the
also
biggest
an
programs
answer
for
to
this-
but that's
Pell
also
Grants.
an answer that
Pell Grants.
Pell Grants have provided support, but again, everything needs to be reexamined.
Title I funding.
Again, the same thing. Look, we've got a $36 trillion debt. We have
Well,
$2 trillion
Department of
deficit,
Education
so
is a
that's
very
all
small
combined in
percent
there.
of the funding. It's the Defense Department
okay.
spending that is the big part. But it's concern. I appreciate you're at least telling Musk that he shouldn't stop these payments that have been authorized by Congress. I hope Elon will come in and explain that. He won't do that. But I am concerned that you would want to cut programs like the IDEA Act, possibly, that are helping kids with disabilities across America.
I didn't say that, Congressman. What I
that
did
you're
say
open
is
to
that everything, look, part of the problem, everybody says this is only a small percentage of spending, and then you get a $36 trillion debt.
Yeah, because the big items are defense and the tax breaks for the wealthy.
Okay, gentleman's time's expired. Chair recognizes Mr. Higgins from Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a lot to cover and not a lot of time to do it in. I'd like to enter for the record, please, a letter from the Associated Builders and Contractors of America regarding merit-based hiring, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection to order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My brothers and sisters across the aisle, on both sides of the aisle, we have a historical trend in our nation. We have an opportunity to address legitimately from both liberal and conservative perspectives. I think it should be embraced because, generally speaking, we started losing our country about 40 years ago regarding the accelerated accumulation of debt. And this coincides, of course, with the massive growth of the federal government. And this coincides, of course, with the ongoing increasing infringement upon individual liberties, rights, and freedoms, and movement away from the sovereignty of our states regarding their ability to handle their business, reflective of the 10th Amendment, might I add, which reserves to the states all authorities not specifically enumerated to the federal government or prohibited to the states by Congress or the Constitution. So, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, President Clinton, when you have a unified government, when you have either party in majority control, the House, the Senate, and the White House, that's opportunity to really address the trajectory that we're on in our country. President Clinton wasn't going to reduce the size and scope of the federal government. President Bush wasn't going to reduce the size and scope of the federal government. President Obama wasn't going to do that. You have a unique moment in history right now. We have an obligation to address the trajectory that has been established over the last 4 decades. This is a trajectory towards doom for our country. It's unsustainable. So we have an executive branch that's pumping the brakes. And this is something that this town is very uncomfortable with, and quite frankly, it's new territory. It's a new exercise for our country in modern history. So there's going to be maybe some wild steering, shall we say, when you're applying the brakes for the first time in modern history. But I encourage my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to grasp what's going on here. We're trying to save our republic from itself. Governor Reynolds, I would like to ask you about your role, your beautiful work, reducing your own executive branch from 37 cabinet-level departments to 16. It's exactly the kind of thing we're trying to do. You saved your state a lot of money. You changed your trajectory of spending. You reestablished financial stability and economic prosperity because of your conservative approach. It's what we're trying to do. And the President Trump and Mr. Musk is as an ambassador of common sense for President Trump to look hard at the practices of our executive branches and to reduce their size and scope. Governor Reynolds, I have a formula essentially that transitions federal service back to the sovereign states. We can save a lot of money doing this. What are your thoughts on shifting federal responsibilities away from the massive federal government to the sovereign states? Generally speaking, agencies like EPA, FEMA, Bureau of Prisons, how would that work in your state, ma'am?
Well, we would welcome that, again, and especially with the alignment, I think we're positioned very well to do that. So I appreciate what I see happening with DOGE. As I indicated in my remarks, I'm standing up Iowa DOGE, so we can continue to bring the private sector in to examine the way that we're doing business. Government has to operate more like a business. It had been 40 years since we even looked at the structure of government in Iowa. It was ripe for reform. You know, they never eliminate a program. They never do away with one. Once it started, it stays. If it's not working, they think more money is the answer to it, so we keep it. If it doesn't work, there's really no metrics ever tied to anything, but the ongoing thought is if we put a little bit more money into it, eventually it's going to work. So I believe that states are well suited to implement block grants with accountability, with transparency, with metrics, with KPIs, so that we can report back to the federal government the results that we're seeing from the opportunity to take those streamlined dollars and be innovative and be effective, whether it's the Department of Education, FEMA. I had 3 presidential disaster declarations in 2 months
Yes,
this
ma'am.
last spring.
Thank you. My time has expired, Governor. Thank you for the work that you're doing.